Persona 5 was one of the most innovative and stylish JRPGs of the 2010s, a game with over 100 hours of content and the ability to spend free time however the player wanted, forming close relationships with your teammates and other citizens of Tokyo in between dungeon crawling with your powers that look like they came right out of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Persona 5 Royal is the definitive way to experience the game, with an extra semester added to the school year, as well as more floors added to Mementos, an entire new palace, and a few new characters to form bonds with. This review will be as spoiler-free as possible. Although Persona 5 is my favorite game ever, it still has aspects that could be improved in Persona 6. Without any further ado, let's get into the review. The Persona series is critically acclaimed for its soundtrack and general sound design, and Royal is no different. While carrying over the tracks from base Persona 5, Royal adds several new ones that mostly play into the brand new section of the game. The songs that play often, such as Beneath the Mask, Last Surprise, and the new Takeover, are expertly designed so they stay fresh to the player regardless of the amount of times they're played. Not only are they memorable, they are placed in such a way that the player can look back on the aspects of the game they pertain to with a clear memory of when they played and how they felt at the time. For example, Takeover plays when the player successfully ambushes an enemy's shadow, and this gives the player a sense of accomplishment for pulling off the ambush. Last Surprise, on the other hand, mainly plays when the player is the one getting ambushed, and this leads to a feeling of mild panic and uneasiness with the player now being at a disadvantage. The songs that only play at one or two specific instances, such as I Believe and Throw Your Mask Away, are even more memorable than the others because they create memories of those very specific moments. Both of these songs are new to Royal and played during the final phase of the story. These songs were also crafted in such a way that their lyrics directly relate to what's happening on screen, a culmination of the game's themes and overall tone. Looking at the sound design outside of the soundtrack, the sound effects also tie into the themes of the game, greatly adding to the feeling of being a stylish trickster. The placement of these effects is very slick and go hand in hand with the art style and overall presentation of the game in its entirety. The voice actors for the new characters are stellar at performing their lines, believably portraying strong emotions when necessary. Similar to the characters already present in the base game, maxing out these new characters in their confidant ranks feels like speaking to and hanging out with a real friend because, well, they seem real. The art style in Persona 5 Royal is super clean and also relates very nicely to the themes and tone of the game. The motif of red and black throughout the game directly relates to the overarching themes of rebellion and breaking free from metaphorical chains. They symbolize an almost overwhelming desire to rise up against corrupt members of society to strive for a brighter future. The menus and their transitions fully leaned into a comic book style, but still kept the anime-esque look that the series is known for. This anime look also appears in cutscenes that are important enough to the story to get special treatment, but not enough to have a fully fleshed out 3D rendered cutscene. A good example of a cutscene like this is when the player meets Ann for the first time at the beginning of the game. The cutscene stands out from a lot of the other events in the game because it's in a different style, thus presenting a sense of importance due to this. On the other end of cutscenes, there are the ones that mainly play before and after boss fights, and these are the most flashy and high quality from a graphical standpoint. These are the most important cutscenes to the story, so it's clear that Atlus wanted to make these the easiest to remember, and the ones to stand out the most from the others since they are so closely tied to the main story and conflict. The Persona series is unique in that it's a combination of a high school simulator, a dating simulator, and a dungeon crawler turn-based JRPG. This is the area in which the most changes and enhancements were made to Persona 5. The main thing that Royal made that wasn't present in the base game was the addition of Showtime attacks, a spin-off of the all-out attack that focuses on two characters and a finisher move that displays the personalities of the characters and their relationship greatly. Another new feature was the grappling hook. Not only can it be used for flashy navigation through palaces, it can also be used to ambush shadows from a distance, a quality of life change that makes it easier to pick off shadows one by one, while also inflicting fear or dizziness when starting the battle. Another quality of life change that made a huge difference this time around was the ability to stack baton passes and level them up by playing darts with teammates. A party member can hit a weakness, baton pass to give another member an attack boost, they pass to another for another damage boost as well as slight recoveries to HP and SP, then to the final teammate for the most out of the 3 boosts. This makes strategy even more important in more difficult battles, and can almost be overpowered if used effectively. Personas now also have passive skills, and these do not take up a skill slot. This makes skill optimization a bit easier, as some of the passive abilities have the same effects as some a certain persona can learn that would otherwise take up a skill slot. Overall, battles are a lot more forgiving in terms of player choice, and rewards optimization from the player. The palaces returning from the base game had quality of life improvements as well. Completely optional items called will seeds were added, and when all 3 of a palace are collected, the player receives an item from them combining that usually acts as an extra skill slot when equipped. These can then be taken to a new character, Jose, in Mementos, to be further transformed into a more powerful item. These items again reward the player for taking the extra time to optimize their gameplay, but they're not overpowered enough to break the game. And in turn, the game isn't completely unforgiving as a result of not obtaining them. Yet another quality of life change in the real world portion of the game is the addition of your confidants giving you a phone call after the hangout is over. This change, though small compared to the others mentioned, allows the player to get a few extra points for the relationship that make ranking them up significantly quicker and easier to max out. The Jazz Club, as well as the Dart and Billiard Room, are new additions, and all 3 give opportunities to increase relationships with confidants, learning new skills in the Jazz Club, and increasing baton pass levels as mentioned before in the Dart Room. The final, more minor change that was made was the frequency of Morgana telling the player to go to bed was significantly decreased. There's more overall freedom at nighttime to do some confidants or craft infiltration tools. The narrative of Royal stays almost exactly the same from the base game for the majority of the playthrough, with the exception of the new characters, Maruki and Kasumi, being sprinkled into events like the Firework Festival and places where the player has a lot of free time in between palaces. Without going into too much detail and spoiling, the new semester adds an entirely new major plot point that ties directly into the rest of the game without feeling like padding. Up until this point, or around the end of the 6th palace, the pacing of the narrative stays completely akin to that in base Persona 5. Atlus managed to add a whole extra semester of content and made it feel necessary to the main themes of the game, without detracting from the story of the original. The new ending ties up the plot better than the original, giving a well-deserved send-off to both Joker and the player. Persona 5 Royal has exceedingly great replay value for at least one more playthrough. This is due to the New Game Plus feature, in which all of the player's confidant ranks, Persona Compendium, money, items, and unlocks all transfer over. There's a secret boss battle that can only occur in any playthrough after the first, which tests the player's knowledge of the battle system and its mechanics. The combined Will Seed Crystal from the final palace can't be crafted by Jose until New Game Plus either. The story stays the exact same in this playthrough, so players can skip the dialogue and spend all their free time making Joker and their team extremely powerful, and fusing Joker's ultimate persona almost instantly if the player had enough money to carry over from their first playthrough. To those who love grinding experience and making their team capable of one-shotting bosses, Royal has incredible replay value. To those wanting to 100% the game achievements-wise, a second playthrough is unnecessary, as everything can be completed in one run with good time management. And now to take a step back and talk about my personal experiences with the game. All in all, Persona 5 Royal took an already near perfect game and further enhanced it to be potentially one of the greatest JRPGs ever made. Any issues I had with the original were fixed in the form of the quality of life changes mentioned earlier. Being able to max out all confidants without strictly planning a schedule in one run was made a lot easier, and I found myself having about a month worth of free time that I used to meditate in the temple to have a ton of extra SP. The change to Mementos' music was a welcome addition, and I didn't feel like reaching the bottom was a chore with a repetitive 30-second loop of uninteresting music playing the whole time. The new characters felt necessary to the plot and didn't feel forced. In fact, they seemed like they'd been there all along with how natural they felt. The new areas added to the overworld aided the feeling of running out of things to do in the original game. Many of these new features focused on buffs to the party in the metaverse. As I said before, the story wrapped up all loose plot points in the end and felt like an overall more complete game than the original. I rate this one 10 pancakes out of 10.